Hey there, how there, ho there, it's Jeff Cutter Diamond welcoming you to yet another Cutter Top 10 video. And today we're going to be doing a redo of a video I did last year. I did the Top 10 World Series last year, of course, prior to the 2025 World Series. And 2025 World Series now is one of the best of all time. I have to practically give it some credence and I have to redo my list, if you will. So, of course, rocking the baby blue of the Toronto Blue Jays. I definitely don't think they're going to make the World Series this year. Making the playoffs is one thing, but making the World Series is another thing. Although they did win 2 out of 3 against the Mets. But anyway, yeah. So we're going to be talking about the top 10 World Series of all time, and I'm going to try my best to keep it under 25 minutes. Anyway, so yeah, 2025 is in this thing in the first place. Okay, here we go. Number 10, 93 Blue Jays Phillies. Yeah, I know it's a little biased with the Blue Jays, but 93 was better than 92. Yes, 1992 gave the Toronto Blue Jays their first World Series in history. However, 93 was big because it wasn't just the Blue Jays and how good they were. It was their opponents, the Philadelphia Phillies. I mean, they were the modern gas house gang, rough and tough guys, basically having fun with each other, pulling pranks and all that. And they managed, with Curt Schilling's help and John Kruk, Darren Daulton, and Lenny Dykstra, to win the NL East and take out those pesky Atlanta Braves who were supposed to win the NL after their final day win over the Giants for the West, which was one of the best pennant races of all time. Um. Anyway, so a lot of things. Yeah, I just got a great idea. Anyway, so the top. So the Blue Jays had to lose. They lost a lot of players. They actually lost Dave Winfield to the Twins and picked up Paul Molitor from the Brewers. They lost uh, Kelly Gruber to the Angels, but picked up and put Ed Sprague up to the main slot. They lost Manny Lee to Texas and picked up Dick Schofield for shortstop, but then he got hurt, and then the Jays had to trade with the Mets to get Tony Fernandez. Ricky Henderson was picked up in left field. Kenny Maldonado wasn't there, but yeah, Ricky Henderson, the deal was picked up there. So and they lost Dave Stephen, Jimmy Key, top starters. Pat Hankin came up through the system, and then they got Dave Stewart from Oakland, which was shocking. Hanky gone, Trey Ward coming in for him. So the Jays had a lot of turnover, if you will. They faced Phillies in the World Series. It was 1-1 headed back to Philly for Game 3, in which the Blue Jays made a shocking decision to bench John Olerud, who was the batting champion of the AL, for Paul Molitor because the National League Parks didn't have the DH. So they didn't have the DH. But Molitor proved everyone wrong with a big 2-run triple and a home run in Game 3. In Game 4 was that crazy 15-14 game, which the Jays were down 14-9 and scored 6 in the 8th to win 15-14. Game 6 of the series is the famous Joe Carter home run, of course, when Ricky Anderson walked and then there was a single by Molitor. They were both on base when Joe Carter took a 2-2 slider just over the left field wall. Touch a ball, Joe. You'll never hit a bigger home run in your life, as Tom Cheek puts it. And the Jays won their second World Series in a row. Okay, here we go. Number 9 is the 2011 World Series, Cardinals versus Rangers. The 2011 baseball season was shocking and all that. Boston and Atlanta were all but certain of making the playoffs as the wildcard team, as the Yankees and the Phillies were the top teams in their divisions. So the Red Sox and Braves were going to make it, and it's the fourth team, the wild card. However, they both massively choked. Boston's choke kind of started on Labor Day when they gave up a Eric Kinski home run for the Blue Jays, and then of course that snowballed from there. Atlanta snowballed from there. Boston lost on the final day of the regular season to Baltimore, and then coupled with a Tampa Bay come from behind win from 6-0 down against the Yankees. Tampa was going to make the wild card. Atlanta choked against the Phillies in 13 innings, and the Cardinals crushed the Astros like nothing else. The Cardinals would take that momentum into the 2011 playoffs, get themselves to the finals against the Texas Rangers, who were looking to win after their 2010 choke against the Giants. It was a 7-game series that was hectic. Game 6 defined the series, as Texas had a 2-run lead in the bottom of the ninth to win the World Series, and then David Freese hit that 2-run triple to tie the game. No problem. Josh Hamilton hit a home run in the 10th, and Texas was winning. But Lance Berkman crushed a double of his own to tie the game. And then David Freese in the 11th inning, he went to center field. And Joe Buck challenged his father, Jack Buck, by saying, "We will see you tomorrow night." And so that's what happened. So that's the big moment there. And then the Cardinals won Game 7 over a demoralized Texas team. There we go. Number 8 is the 1924 World Series, Washington versus the Giants. So 1924 was a whole lot different. Walter Johnson was this legendary pitcher who played for Washington, one team player from 1907 to 1927, and was pretty good and all that. But his team just couldn't win games for him. He would lose many games 1-0, a lot of them. So in 1924, after 17 years in the majors, he finally got a chance to win a World Series. He would face the New York Giants. Well, of course, the Senators are the former home of the Minnesota Twins before the team moved to Minnesota in 1961, and the New York Giants were the home of the Giants until 1958. So anyway, sorry, I gotta hang with my thumb and all that, but yeah. So the Senators and Giants battled each other until Game 7, which went 12 innings. Walter Johnson came in relief and did well. However, the Giants would be ruined, especially their third baseman Freddie Lindstrom, by 2 bad pebbles that actually tied the game. And then in the 12th inning, Money Rule, the star Giants catcher, fumbled a foul pop-up when he stepped in his mask after flinging it away. But it happened, and then a second ball hit the pebble. Washington won the game 4-3. Roger Peckinpah would, in 1925, when Washington played Pittsburgh, be the GOAT, and not in a good way with so many errors. But yeah, the Senators beat the Giants, giving Walter Johnson a World Series ring. That's amazing. Number 7 is the 2001 World Series Arizona Yankees. I know a lot of people will be thinking that's too low, but based off of the dramatics of the other ones above them and all that, it was just too hard to miss. But yeah, 2001 World Series, everyone wanted the Yankees to win because, of 9/11. The Diamondbacks were in their 4th season as a franchise and got to the World Series. They had to fight off St. Louis on a bottom of the ninth chopper to win the NLDS. Went to the NLCS, beat the Braves, and became the fastest team to the World Series, although Marlins kind of were close too. Well, the Marlins were in their 5th season. The New York Yankees obviously won. Everyone wanted them to move on. They actually were down 2-0 in the LDS in the best of 5 against Oakland. But then Derek Jeter's flip throw after a loose ball in the infield actually gave the Yankees momentum. And then Jeter made a flip into the stands in Game 5. Like foul ball, for a foul ball. Yankees would take care of the 116-win Seattle Mariners. Yeah, that happened in 2001. To move on to the World Series against the Diamondbacks. It was tight. Diamondbacks won 2 games at home thanks to Randy Johnson and Curt Schilling. They couldn't use them for Game 3. The Yankees won. But that was actually a blowout, if you will. Compared to Games 4 and 5. Game 4 and 5 were just crazy. Yankees were down to it. Tino Martinez hit a massive 2-run home run off Byung Kim to tie the game, and then Derek Jeter became Mr. November, hitting that ball to right field. I know a lot of people said some guy time traveled with that Mr. November sign, but someone would have been Mr. November anyway. Like they were going to Game 5. Game 5, Scott Brosius hit a 2-run home run in the 9th, and I don't know why they brought Kim back in the game after those demoralizing home runs. Yankees won on a looping single in the 11th, and then Game 6, the Diamondbacks used Randy Johnson a little too far to win the game 15-1. Go to Game 7. It was a tight one between Schilling and Clemens, but the Yankees were about to win after Alfonso Soriano hit a home run in the 8th. However, Mo Rivera, who barely missed saves in the postseason, blew the save. Thanks to Tony Womack's speed and all that, they stifled them. And then Lugo hit the single over Jeter's shoulder. And the Diamondbacks were going to knock out the Yankees and ruin their chance for a four-peat. I picked the Diamondbacks because I thought their defense and their pitching was going to work out, and I was right. And mostly because that's my last name. Number 6, Pittsburgh Yankees 1960. I know the ending was great and all that, but that wasn't really the whole story. Basically, you have to go through the whole World Series and for the magic moments. Pittsburgh and the Yankees only had a few. Pittsburgh and the Yankees in the first 6 games was a microcosm. The Yankees were crushing the Pirates in run differential. It seems that the Yankees, when they win by big numbers. When Pittsburgh wins, it's by small numbers. So Game 7 happened. It was a fantastic Game 7 that had Pittsburgh up by a few runs thanks to a Hal Smith home run, and Hal Smith would have been the hero in the bottom of the 8th. But in the top of the 9th, the Yankees scored a pair of runs. Mickey Mantle made an amazing play, a base running play that kept the inning going. So it was 9-9. The leadoff guy was Bill Mazeroski and took a 1-0 pitch off of Ralph Terry over the left field wall. Yogi Berra, playing left field, saw it go floating over the left field wall at Forbes Field, and the Pirates won 10-9, and it was just iconic for Bill Mazeroski's home run. And ironic enough, Mazeroski has died this year, 2026. This is like, what the fuck? In fact, the 1960 Pirates have been met 3 times in 2026. Roy Face and Bob Skinner also have died this year. But it shows how long these guys were, because this World Series was 66 years ago, and they were still alive. But yeah, Mazeroski's home run was massive. Not the last time we see a walk-off home run in the World Series, but the first in Game 7. What's even more crazy is that this game almost was lost to time. But thanks to Bing Crosby, the crooner, who had a kinetoscope made of the NBC broadcast, it was preserved, and it was one of the most great found footage things in 2011. Number 5 is the current World Series, 2025, Dodgers Blue Jays. It was classic and all that. The Dodgers going for back-to-back titles, trying to become the first team in a quarter century to do so, which was actually the longest drought of any of the Big Four franchise leagues. The Blue Jays were spunky. They were in trouble in the AL East and then had a 4-game sweep over the Yankees on Canada Day week. During Canada Day. And then the Blue Jays somehow won the division. They tied the Yankees, but based off of head-to-head, the Blue Jays won the division. Got to sit back and wait for the Yankees or Red Sox in the playoffs. And then the Blue Jays beat the Yankees thanks to 2 great offensive shows in Games 1 and 2, including Vladdy Guerrero and Alejandro Kirk hitting grand slams each. The Blue Jays would take on their expansion rivals, Seattle Mariners, because both teams were born in 1977. And it looked like Seattle was going to the World Series for the first time in history, but the Jays won Game 6 and 7 on home turf. And, of course, George Springer's 3-run home run, which did better than Jose Batista's bat flip, that's for sure. The Dodgers actually were underdogs against Milwaukee in the NLCS, but they proved why they were veterans, especially Shohei Ohtani with that 3-home-run performance and that pitching performance as well. Dodgers Blue Jays Game 1 in Toronto because Toronto won immediately a Sunday game at Dodger Stadium, and that actually helped them win home field advantage. Game 1, the national anthems, O Canada, Star Spangled Banners, giving everyone chills, and then Addison Barger, grand slam off the bench. Blue Jays won 9-2 in Game 1. They lost Game 2, no big deal. Game 3 went 18 frickin' innings, and the Blue Jays lost. The Jays would actually shockingly win Games 4 and 5, including going back-to-back home runs to start Game 5. And the Blue Jays were going to be up 3-2, and it looked like the Jays were going to win the World Series on Halloween night. And they got spooked. The Blue Jays had a chance to tie the game in the bottom of the 9th with a double that somehow snuck under the left field wall and got stuck there. And by rule, it was a dead ball. So it was a ground rule double, if you will. And if the ball had moved a few inches to the left or the right or whatever, that would have given the Jays maybe a few runs. And then Game 7 happened. Bo Bichette hit a 3-run home run off Shohei Ohtani. And the Blue Jays were rocking 3-0. They were up 4-2. Yes, Savage gave up a home run in the 8th. No big deal. It's 4-3. All the Blue Jays needed to do was get 3 outs in the 9th. Game over. But Jeff Hoffman gives up a home run to Miguel fucking Rojas, the guy who couldn't hit for shit in the postseason. He had to sink the Blue Jays. So that went there. The Blue Jays had a chance in the bottom of the 9th. They actually had a couple of great chances. But all of a sudden, they just couldn't finish the job. And the one guy, if he had slid towards home plate, he might have scored. But yeah, in the 11th, Will Smith, the catcher, hit a home run to left field, I think off Scherzer. And that was it. The Dodgers won the World Series. Not to take away from Clayton Kershaw, I mean, winning the World Series in his swan song, and Yoshinobu Yamamoto putting up 3 wins. I mean, that was great, but it had to be against the Blue Jays. Fuck. Number 4 is the 1986 World Series, Mets Red Sox. 1986 was one of the best postseasons ever. The ALCS and NLCS had some classics. The ALCS, the Angels were up 3-1. One strike away from Fantasyland, as Al Michaels put it. Dave Henderson hit a home run off of Donnie Moore in left field. But let's not forget that if Gary Lucas had not plunked Rich Gedman, they might not have needed Donnie Moore. But yeah, the Red Sox were up in that game. People forget that the Angels needed to score a run in the bottom of the ninth to tie the game, and then Henderson had a sac fly to win the game. They could have won game 6 or 7 in Boston. They had split in Boston. But all of a sudden, they effed up. In the NLCS, the Mets and Astros would meet in a tight 6-game series. Mike Scott was basically scuffing the ball, if you will, and winning games. The Mets knew they had to win game 6 in Houston, otherwise they would have had to face Mike Scott in game 7 at the Astrodome. It took a 16-inning super fest, and the Mets won. Mets would take on the Red Sox. Ironically, Tom Seaver, who was actually on the Red Sox roster, was going to play his former team, but he was injured, so he couldn't play it. The Mets were down 2-0, although they won 108 regular season games. Red Sox were confident up 2-0. Davey Johnson basically told his players stay away from the ballpark on the off day before game 3. And then it worked. The Mets won 2 out of 3 against the Red Sox at Fenway. We're still down 3-2, and Dave Henderson almost struck magic in the 10th. It was supposed to be magic until the Mets with 2 outs had back-to-back hits, and then Bob Stanley throwing that terrible wild pitch which tied the game, and then Mookie Wilson hitting the slow roller that Bill Buckner had it underneath his legs and all that, which was stupid because Bill Buckner should not have been out there playing defense because he was hobbled. Dave Stapleton was the first baseman to come out to play first base for Buckner, and Red Sox were undefeated with Stapleton out on the field. Game 7 was actually rained out for one day, and Bruce Hurst was made to pitch instead of O'Cam Boyd. And the Mets took care of business in Game 7. Number 3 is the 2016 World Series Cubs-Indians. Yes, I'm saying Indians. So the 2016 World Series meant a lot to these two teams. The Cubs had not won the World Series since 1908, had not been to the World Series since 1945. That was seven decades. Cleveland had not won a title since 1948. They've had some fair mistakes. 1954, they had a chance, but they were swept. 95 and 97, they unfairly lost. And then the Cubs took care of the Dodgers in the World Series. In the NLCS. Cleveland took care of Toronto in the ALCS. That was when the Blue Jays had to win the wild card game against Baltimore, face Texas, sweep Texas, and basically that fan sign of I'd rather be punched in May than knocked out in October happened. And then the Blue Jays ran into the Cleveland's bullpen. So the Cubs and Indians were battling each other. Cleveland was up 3-1. It looked like game set match. Cubs won game 5 on home turf. No big deal. And then game 6, they powered through with an Addison Russell grand slam. And then in game 7, it was magic. Cubs were looking good. They're up 5-2, and then they choked it. Rajai Davis, of all people, with a 2-run home run in the 8th to tie the game. And then a rain delay soaked before the 10th inning of game 7, which saw the Cubs score twice. Cleveland did score once, but in the end of it, the Cubs did win the World Series, finally ending their 108-year championship drought. Number 2, the 1991 World Series, Twins-Braves. This was a 7-game epic battle. A lot of people say this is the best World Series and not number 1, but you make the judge. This is a modern record. But anyway, yeah, Twins and Braves battled each other. They both actually were last in their divisions in 1990. And then, well, the Braves actually had the number 1 overall pick for the 1991 draft. They took Chipper Jones. But yeah, the Braves and Twins were fighting mediocrity. The Twins took care of my beloved Toronto Blue Jays in the ALCS in 5 games. And the Braves took care of the Pirates. No, that was not Sid Slid. That was the next year. So anyway, Twins and Braves battled each other. It was intense. 5 of the 7 games ended in a one-run deficit, in a one-run victory by the team. The Braves won twice in extra innings on home turf in extra innings. The Braves were up 3-2. All the home teams won. The Twins won games 1 and 2. Braves 3-4-5. Game 6 was intense. Kirby Puckett made a catch near the plexiglass when plexiglass, my ass, was still there. And then in the 10th, Kirby hit a home run over left field off of Charlie Lieberman, and Jack Buck, who was for CBS, said, "We'll see you tomorrow night." And that's what happened. Game 7 was intense. Jack Morris threw a 10-inning shutout to win the game 1-0. However, the Braves screwed themselves up. Ron Gant completely mishandled a play in the 8th inning. He was on base and he fell for a decoy made by Chuck Knobloch at second base. If he had not been decoyed, he would have scored easily off that double. But then the Braves had the bases loaded in the 8th inning and the Twins got out of the mess. And Gene Larkin was the hero. And finally, numero uno is Red Sox from 1975. It was the gold standard. 5 of the 7 games were one-run affairs as well, and it had some controversy. Well, Louis Tion pitched a couple of games with over 120 pitches and won them. Game 3 was controversial as Ed Armbruster actually partially interfered with Carlton Fisk's throw to first base, and the Red Sox thought it was interference and all that, and the Reds should not have gotten the breaks they got. Allegedly, baseball commissioner Bowie Kuhn was upset with NBC and with Curt Gowdy and co. getting mad at the controversy and wanted Gowdy fired from NBC. That was allegedly the rumor, but it didn't really happen that way. So the Reds and Red Sox actually had a tough time because Rain actually watched Game 6 3 times. So there was a 3-day break between Games 5 and 6. Although Pete Rose said that this was the greatest World Series of all time, as it will. Game 6 was a big moment. The Reds were up 6-3 when Bertie Carbo, the former Red, hit a 3-run home run, tied the game at 6, and the Red Sox had a chance at the bottom of the ninth, but they stupidly made a base running gaffe. However, in the 11th, Dwight Evans made a spectacular catch to right field and still had enough foresight to double the runner off first base, which meant that the inning was over, and Carlton Fisk off of Pat Dorsey hits one over the left field fence, and it was magical. He hit the home run. And, of course, Carlton Fisk's home run actually gave birth to what they call the reaction shot, but it was accidental about Fisk having this reaction shot because Lou Gerard of NBC had a camera in the left field, in the Green Monster left field. It was told to watch the flight of the ball. However, there was a rat near him, and he was frozen, and then that was when Fisk had the reaction and all that, and that actually made television history. Game 7 was a magic one, although Bill Lee stupidly decided to have the falling floater pitch to Tony Perez, which he cracked it open. A lot of people said that lost them the World Series, the Red Sox. I kind of feel that way too. But that's all I've got for this World Series. So will 2026 be great? I don't know. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond.